Hi, I'm Cozen, and I paint with acrylics. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is just start. Along the way, I've listened to so many people tell me they're paralyzed by a blank surface, and that it's the most difficult thing to resolve. Today, I want to share with you some of the many techniques I use for getting started and creating interesting foundations. They help me, and I hope they will help you too. So now I'm going to pick up some Hansa Yellow Medium and drop it into the wet sections and let it do some color changing. As it introduces itself to the quinacridone magenta, you're going to see some oranges begin to develop. And by staying on the edges there, I can introduce some pretty clean marks into the areas that are still white, playing with sort of a serrated edge. I never quite know where it's going to go when I start. I like the magic of serendipity and just being able to play with color as a beginning rather than having to plan everything out and risk feeling too controlled. There's got to be joy in painting, and for me the joy is in maintaining that element of play. It's good for our minds to have something that we do that is free and not constrained by too many rules, and it's nice to have a hobby or a avocation that lets us do that. Okay, let's try some of that. Oh, that's nice too. Just repeat that color all the way through, switching back and forth so that we can keep the colors balanced and bring some of that violet down into the bottom, over the top. You might say, well, what happens next? Well, that's a whole other story. Beginning a painting isn't always about what happens next. Sometimes the painting actually starts to tell you what it wants to do just by what happens. So the important thing is to know a variety of techniques that can really give you a sense of what might happen next. If you create interesting color and interesting movement, sometimes that speaks loudly enough to tell you what to do next. And we shouldn't be shy about trying things that create opportunities to try, to push us to the next step. I love to play with this technique. It's especially fun if you're a hesitant person and you really don't want to make a mark that's locked in stone right away. It requires using the open gel medium. I've got matte here, it comes in gloss as well, and the open paint. And essentially I prepared a board that has very old dictionary pages that have been glued on and then had matte medium applied over the surface. So they're well affixed, they're not going anywhere, and they're not going to peel up, and they're not going to fall apart because I've sealed them both top and bottom with gel medium. I need that because I want a sealed surface to do this project and create an interesting surface. So we're going to take some of the medium and put it on this plate so we can mix color into it. Now remember, this is the open medium, so it gives us a lot of working time. And we need the working time for this technique because it's a subtractive technique, which means I'm going to apply it all over the surface and I'm going to take some out to create the shapes that I want, which makes it fun for doing almost anything from just simple round shapes to creating an entire landscape. So let's see what happens. So I'm going to skim some of this in different places. And already you can see as I skim it over that thicker layers are not going to reveal the letters underneath, and thinner layers do. So now comes the fun of removing some of the product. So if I want to create a traveling visual line, I can just go in here and remove some of this product. And here I could create the steps if I wanted to. and really just get some interesting spaces. If I want some of this to open up to the sky, then I can sort of carve it right in to the surface. Here's where I use the cheesecloth. You can see it's glued down here. It makes a great texture. I've also used an old piece of book, the cover of an old book that I glued down. That's when the clamp really came in handy. I had clamps on these two sides and up here and here, a larger clamp. To hold that down as it was drying really came in handy because that was a lot to glue down. In that case, I used the heavy gel and really kept the clamp. The clamps really kept it down until it dried fully. And then there's coats of matte medium, and then there's coats of the gesso on top. So we're ready to act on it now, which is great fun. This is a wonderful place to be. Just love the way that looks with all that texture up there. This is a great way to start a composition, just getting some rich colors down and worked into the texture that you've applied. Spend the time thinking about the texture at the beginning. Get a nice color on there and then see where it goes from there.